The hostess told her the restaurant was fully booked at 6:47 p.m. on a Friday, with 11 empty tables behind her and a reservation book that had not been touched in 40 minutes. The old woman did not argue. She stood at the entrance of Sulaco's on the corner of Adabraka High Street and Kojo Thompson Road in Accra with a black leather handbag that had seen 31 years of use, its stitching restitched by hand 3 times along the left strap, and she looked at the hostess the way a woman looks at something she has already decided not to remember. She was wearing a green lace blouse she had owned since 1994, pressed that morning with a travel iron she plugged into the socket near the bathroom door. The blouse was old. It was not dirty. That distinction was everything about her. The hostess, whose name tag read Blessing in capital letters, looked at the green lace blouse before she looked at the face above it. "I'm sorry," Blessing said, in a voice that was not sorry at all. "We're fully committed tonight." The woman, her name was Adaeze Akebe. She was 71 years old, and she had arrived 12 minutes early for the reservation she had made 3 days prior, said only, "I called ahead." "The name is Akebe." Blessing looked at the book. She turned 1 page, then back. "I don't see that here." Behind her, a waiter named Solomon moved between tables carrying 2 plates of jollof rice and grilled tilapia. A couple near the window laughed at something and refilled each other's glasses. The restaurant smelled of palm oil and crayfish, and the faint sweetness of caramelized plantain coming from the kitchen. In the back corner, a table of 4 businessmen in fitted suits were speaking loudly enough to fill the room. "It's under Akebe," Adaeze said again, quietly. Akebe for 2. 7 o'clock. "I've checked," Blessing said, and closed the book, and the way she closed it was the end of the conversation in her mind. "We're fully committed. There are other restaurants on the street." Adaeze stood there for 3 more seconds. She pressed the strap of her bag once against her palm. Then she turned and walked back out through the glass door without another word. She did not know that the man who owned the restaurant had just arrived through the back entrance of the kitchen. She did not know his name. But his name was Kolade Mensah, and he had been looking for her for 9 years. Adaeze Akebe had been born in Enugu on a Thursday morning in October 1953, the 4th daughter of a school teacher who could not afford 4 school fees and made the calculation the way poor people always make it, which child could learn enough from listening to the others. Adaeze was the one who listened. She taught herself to read from her older sister's textbooks, sitting in the kitchen doorway where the light was good, sounding out words while her mother pounded yam in the corner. She did not reach Standard 6 until she was 15, 2 years behind her sisters. She did not complain. She was not built for complaining. By the time she was 22, she had moved to Accra with an aunt who cleaned houses in cantonments and had found work in the kitchen of a hotel on Accra's Ring Road, the Continental Hotel, since demolished, which in 1975 served 240 covers a night and was considered one of the finest establishments of its kind in West Africa. She started at the washing station. After 11 weeks, she was peeling vegetables. After 4 months, the head cook noticed something. Adaeze did not follow recipes. She adapted them. She tasted a soup at noon and knew by the smell alone that the fermented locust beans had been added 40 minutes before they should have been, and she said so to the head cook, a large man from Kumasi named Emmanuel. And he stared at her for a long time before he moved her to the stove. She had a palate, not just a preference, a memory. She could taste a dish and reconstruct it the way a musician can hear a song once and play it back note by note. Guests at the Continental began requesting the woman's soup. The hotel management did not advertise her name. They put the dish on the permanent menu, raised the price by 40 pesewas, and told no one who made it. She worked at the Continental for 17 years. She cooked Ghanaian food, Lebanese food, the French dishes the white businessmen ordered, the simple boiled rice and tomato stew the junior staff ate on Sundays. She cooked all of it with the same precision, tasting, adjusting, memorizing. When the Continental was sold in 1992, and the new management brought in a European executive chef who did not know and did not ask what the existing kitchen staff knew, Adize packed her things in a brown sack, collected her final envelope, and walked out of the building without ceremony. She was 39 years old and had saved 1,400,000 cedis worth at the exchange rate of that year, enough to rent a small house in Atabraca for 12 months and have something left over. Her husband, a tailor named Boateng who had died of a stroke in 1989, had left her a sewing machine and a debt to a microfinance organization that had taken 3 years to repay. Her 2 daughters, Nana and Abina, were 17 and 14 respectively. She had not told them the amount in the account. She told them only that she was going to try something. What she tried was a chop bar, a counter-service restaurant of 6 plastic tables and a coal pot kitchen behind a low concrete wall on Atabraca Road, 11 steps from the bus stop. She called it nothing. Regulars called it a daisies. She opened at 6:30 a.m. and served until the food ran out, which was typically 1:15 p.m. She made 2 soups per day and 1 rice dish, and the soups were always the light soup with fresh fish and the palm nut soup she had spent 20 years perfecting, thick without being heavy, with a heat that came in 3 layers, first in the front of the mouth, then the back of the throat, then low in the chest, a warmth that lasted. For 6 years the chop bar did steady, modest work. Then a food journalist named Kwame Osei wrote a single paragraph about it in the Daily Graphic under the heading, "The Best Soup in Accra Lives Behind a Bus Stop," and for 11 months Adeyese served 110 to 140 covers a day out of that 6-table counter with 1 coal pot, 1 gas ring, and her daughter Abina helping on Saturdays. Kolade Mensah ate at the chop bar on a Tuesday in November 2001. He was 34 years old and had been in Accra for 6 weeks on a property venture that was taking longer than expected. His driver had heard about the soup. Kolade sat on a plastic stool near the concrete wall, ate 2 full portions of the palm nut soup with fufu, and did not speak for the entire meal. He was not a man who paid compliments freely, but he paid the cook 80,000 cedis, more than double the asking price, and left a note on the plastic table that read, "I want to speak to you about something." He signed it with his phone number and a single initial. K. Adize read the note. She folded it twice and put it in the pocket of her apron. She had been approached before by hotel groups wanting to franchise the soup recipe, by a Lebanese businessman who wanted to put her food in a catering company he was starting, by a journalist who wanted to write a profile. She had said no to all of them. The recipe was hers. The kitchen was hers. The name above the stall, which had no name, was no one's. She did not call Kolade Mensah back, but that was not the end of the story between them. It was the first line. In March of 2002, a water main broke on Atabraca Road. The repair took 3 weeks. The chop bar, which sat directly above the affected stretch of underground pipe, was closed by the District Assembly's order for the duration of the work. During those 3 weeks, the plastic tables were stored at Adese's house. The coal pot was covered with a tarp, and she sat in her kitchen in the morning and cooked for her daughters and the 2 neighbors who always seemed to know when food was on and arrived without being invited. When she reopened, the line of customers was there from 6:15 a.m. before she had lit the coal pot. She did not see the man standing at the back of the line, a young man. not Colade, wearing a pressed white shirt and holding a folder, until the line had moved through and the last customer had collected their soup and the morning rush was over. He introduced himself as the assistant to a Mr. Mensah. He explained that Mr. Mensah was in the process of opening a restaurant, a proper sit-down restaurant, not a hotel kitchen, not a franchise, and that Mr. Mensah wanted to use her palm nut soup as the signature dish and wanted her to have a share of the profits from every bowl sold. He opened the folder. The number written at the top of the document was 15% of net revenue, guaranteed minimum 400,000 cedis per month for the first year. Below it was a second number, a one-time payment of 2,000 cedis for the right to call the dish by its original name. Adese read the document for a long time. She stood at her counter with the smell of palm oil on her hands and read it 3 times. Then she asked the assistant one question. "Will my name be on the menu?" The assistant said he would have to ask Mr. Mensah. He called back 2 days later. Mr. Mensah had said the dish could be described on the menu as a family recipe from an Enugu-born cook. Not her name. A reference. Adese said no. She thanked the assistant. She folded the document into the folder and returned it through the window of the car he had arrived in. She did not think about it again. What happened next took place over 14 months and involved no contact between Adese and Colade Mensah at all. Colade opened Salacos in 2003 on Atabraca High Street, a 90-cover restaurant with a menu that was deliberately built around the flavors she had perfected. Without the signature dish he had not been able to buy. He was good at business. He was not a cook. He hired a good chef from Kumasi and a bar manager from Lagos, and the restaurant did well. Not the way Adese's chop bar had done well. Not word of mouth through the whole city well. But well enough to expand to a second location in East Legon by 2006, and a third in Lebon by 2010. And Adese's chop bar continued to function on its 6 plastic tables until 2013, when the building it operated from was sold to a developer, and the lease was not renewed. She was 60 years old. Her daughters were both in London, Nana working as a pharmacist, Abina completing a master's degree in public health. She had savings, enough, managed carefully, for a modest life. She cooked still, but only for church functions, for neighbors, for the annual Akebe family gathering in December, where 93 people sat in a compound in Atabraca and ate from her hands. She had not been to a proper restaurant in years. Not because she could not afford it. Because sitting in a restaurant as a customer, being served food by someone else, felt like a kind of language she had stopped speaking. It was her daughter Nana, visiting from London for the first time in 3 years, who had made the reservation at Salacos. Nana had read about it in a travel magazine, one of Accra's finest, they had called it. She had booked the table in her mother's name. She had told her mother to meet her there at 7 p.m. because she was coming from the other side of the city and would likely arrive a few minutes after. She had trusted that a table booked in her mother's name would be a table waiting for her mother. If you can feel where this is going, stay with me, because what happens in the next few minutes changes the entire story. Adese walked 3 blocks east on Atabraca High Street after leaving the restaurant. She found a low concrete wall near a phone shop and sat down on it with her bag in her lap and her hands folded on top of the bag. The evening was warm. A hawker passed with a tray of sachets and she bought one. Water, 20 pesewas, and drank it slowly. Across the road, a group of young men were watching a football match on a television visible through the open door of a bar. Someone scored and they shouted. The sound was ordinary and alive. She did not call Nana. She did not want Nana to feel guilty for choosing a place that had turned her away. She was thinking about whether to say anything at all when she heard her name. Adaeze Akebe, not a question, a recognition. She looked up. The woman who had spoken was standing 3 feet away and was roughly her own age, maybe 68, maybe 70, wearing a dark blue wrapper and holding a bottle of Malta. She was looking at Adaeze with an expression that was not surprise and not confusion. It was the expression of someone confirming something they had already expected. "You don't know me," the woman said, and sat down on the wall beside her without asking permission. "But I know your soup. I ate it every Thursday for 4 years on Adabraka Road. My name is Pauline Owusu Boateng. I used to live on the next block." Adaeze looked at her. "I remember a Pauline," she said slowly, "with the twins. The twins are 22 now," Pauline said, and shook her head once. "One is in Tema. One is driving a taxi in London, don't ask me how." She looked at the restaurant. "You were in there just now." "I was." "That young woman at the door." Pauline's voice was level. "I have been watching that door for 3 years. I live on this street. I eat there sometimes with my sister. I have watched that girl turn away 6, 7 people since January alone. All of them people like us." She paused. "The manager's name is Kolade Mensah. He does not know she does it. He is almost never at the front. It's his restaurant to run," Adaeze said. "You gave him something he didn't pay for," Pauline said. She was not making a speech. She was making a statement of fact, the way a woman who has observed something for a long time finally speaks it out loud. "He built that menu. I was in your chop bar the Tuesday he came. I saw him eat. I saw his face when he tasted the soup. I saw him leave the big money on the table. And then I watched his restaurant open a year later with a menu that tastes like a younger brother of yours. Close, but not right. Everyone who knew your food could taste what it was missing." Adaeze was quiet. "He wanted to buy your name," Pauline said. "You didn't sell it. So he built anyway. And now his restaurant is on 3 streets and yours is gone." She took a sip of her Malta. "I think he should know who is sitting on the wall outside his door tonight." "He doesn't need to know anything," Adaeze said. "He should know anyway," Pauline said. She stood up. She was not asking Adaeze's permission for what she was about to do next, because his head chef handed in his notice this morning. "My neighbor's daughter is the kitchen manager. That kitchen has been running on a broken engine for 6 months. And the man doesn't know it yet." She went back into the restaurant. Kolade Mensah was in the back office reviewing the week's supplier invoices when Solomon knocked on the door and told him there was a woman outside asking to speak to the owner. He had been managing this kind of thing since opening. Complaints, mostly. Or people looking for work. He almost asked Solomon to handle it. Then Solomon said, "She's old. She's been sitting on the wall since your hostess turned her away." He did not know why that particular combination of details, old, sitting on the wall, turned away, made him stand up. He stood up. He was in the kitchen when the bridge between what he saw and what he knew finally connected. A woman in a green lace blouse was standing near the back entrance. The blouse was not what he recognized. It was the hands, the way she was holding her bag, pressed against her palms. He had watched those hands move over a coal pot on a plastic table street corner for 20 minutes on a Tuesday in 2001. He had not forgotten. He had not intended to not forget. Some things stay. "Mrs. Achebe," he said. She turned. She looked at him carefully, taking the time to place a face she had seen once, 22 years ago, for less than an hour. Then she placed it. "You were the man with the note," she said. "I was." He came forward. He did not offer a handshake. She had not offered one. He stopped at a respectful distance and looked at her with the particular expression of a man who has just understood something he should have understood much earlier. "You were turned away tonight. There was a mix-up with the reservation." "There was no mix-up," he said. "I've had this conversation before. Come in." 2 words. The door he opened behind him led into the warmth and the smell of palm oil and the sound of the kitchen working. He held it open until she passed through it. He seated her at the corner table near the window, the one the businessmen had vacated at 7:15 p.m., and he asked Solomon to bring water and plantain chips and to tell the kitchen that he would be placing the order personally. He sat across from her. He had not done this in years, sat across from a guest rather than moving through the room. He put his hands flat on the table. "My chef is leaving," he said. It was not the natural beginning of the conversation. It came out because it was the true beginning. As of this morning. "His family is moving to London, and I've known it was coming since February. I've been looking for someone for 4 months. Adaize said nothing. "The menu here has been wrong since it opened," he said. "I've known that too. The food is good. It's not right. There's a difference." He paused. "I knew it was missing something the first week. I knew what it was missing. I knew who had it. I spent 2 years trying to buy it without understanding that it wasn't for sale because it couldn't be bought. It wasn't a recipe. It was a person." He stopped. He looked at his hands. "I'd like you to consider running this kitchen." The table was quiet for a moment. Outside, through the window, Adabraka High Street was moving. Motorcycles, a bus, someone selling groundnuts from a tray on her head, a man carrying a sewing machine under one arm. The city doing what it always did, indifferent to what was happening in a corner table near the window. "You turned away 11 people from this door in January," Adaize said. "I'm told it's a pattern." He did not look surprised that she knew. "The hostess will be spoken to tonight. Formally, she will not do it again, and if she does, she will not work here. It won't only be the hostess," Adaize said. "If I run a kitchen, I run the front too. The food and the welcome are the same thing." He looked at her. Then he nodded once, without reservation. "I want my name on the menu," she said. "Not a family recipe from an Enugu-born cook. My name." "Adaize Achebe," he said. "Yes, and my daughters know the soup," she said. "Nana, the pharmacist in London, she has my memory for food. She has never used it. I would like her to come into this kitchen when she visits and cook beside me. That is not negotiable." "That's not a condition," he said. "That's an invitation." Nana walked through the door of Sulaco's at 7:34 p.m., 12 minutes late because of a queue at the Akratema motorway slip road, and found her mother sitting at the corner table near the window with a man she didn't know, a plate of fried plantain between them, and an expression on her mother's face that Nana could not immediately name. It was something between patience and triumph, which are closer together than most people realize. "You're late," Adaize said. "The traffic was terrible," Nana said. She sat down. She looked at the man across the table. She looked at her mother. "This is Mr. Mensah," Adaize said. "He owns this restaurant." "I'm aware of who owns it," Nana said carefully. "I read about it in the In-Flight magazine." "He is going to put my name on the menu," Adaize said. She picked up a piece of plantain. She tasted it, set it down, and said to Kolade without looking at him, "Your plantain is overripe by 1 day. It's too sweet. It loses the contrast." Kolade made a note on a small pad he had produced from his jacket pocket. He did not argue. He wrote it down. "She means it as a compliment," Nana said. "I know she does," Kolade said. The changes at Sulaco's on Atabraka High Street took 47 days to implement. The hostess, Blessing, was placed on 2 weeks of formal retraining that involved, among other things, standing at the door of the restaurant with the instruction that her only measure of whether a person could be seated was whether a table was available. She did not enjoy the retraining. She completed it. The reservation book was moved to a digital system that logged every cancellation and no-show, and could not be falsified by a hand turning a page. The menu was reprinted in the 3rd week. At the top of the first page, above the list of dishes, there was a single line in a smaller font that read, "Signature recipes by Adize Akebe, a Enugu-born cook, trained in this city's kitchens for 31 years. On the night the new menu launched, Kolade came out of the kitchen at 8 p.m. and stood in the center of the restaurant and asked the room for 1 minute of their attention. He said that the restaurant had been missing something since it opened. He said the missing thing had walked through the back door 9 weeks ago because his hostess had turned her away from the front. He said he was grateful for the error in the exact way a man is grateful for an error that corrected something he had been too slow to correct himself. He said the woman who had improved every dish on the menu was in the kitchen and would be there every Tuesday through Saturday from that evening forward. The table near the window, the corner table, was reserved in the system that night and every night following as table 7. There was no notation in the system about who had priority for it. The kitchen staff knew. Solomon knew. Nana, who called from London every Wednesday at 9 p.m. and always began by asking what the soup was like that day, knew. There is a thing the world does to people it cannot immediately place. It moves them aside. It puts them in the wrong queue or no queue. It looks at the green lace blouse before it looks at the face above it. It calls the reservation book closed when the tables behind it are still empty. This is not always cruelty. Sometimes it is simply the instinct of a world built to recognize power by its surface, by the cut of the cloth, the shine of the shoe, the newness of the bag. The world's failure of recognition is its own poverty, not the person's. Adize Akebe had cooked for this city for 4 decades. She had cooked in a hotel kitchen that never put her name on a plate. She had cooked in a chop bar that was demolished without ceremony. She had cooked for 93 people a year in a compound in Atabraka and been thanked with the particular silence of people who have just tasted something that they will not be able to stop thinking about. She had been turned away from a restaurant at 6:47 p.m. on a Friday because a young woman looked at her blouse and made a calculation. None of it had touched what she carried. That is the thing about a palate. A real palate. The kind that is not trained, but born and then spent a lifetime in development. You cannot take it. You cannot buy it. You cannot replicate it in a menu built from memory of someone else's food. You can turn a woman away from the door of a restaurant, and she will sit on a wall outside drinking water from a sachet, watching football through the open door of a bar across the street, waiting for her daughter, carrying inside her everything she has always carried. The people who think they are handing others an ending are often, without knowing it, handing them a key. You may know someone like Adize Akebe, someone who has spent their whole life building something the world kept looking past, someone whose name should have been on the wall years ago, someone who kept pressing the strap of the bag against their palm and walking back out through the glass door without a scene, because dignity was the one thing they would not allow anyone to mistake for defeat. If this story found you tonight, it is because you have either been that person or you have sat across the table from that person and not yet understood what you were sitting across from. And the night Blessing closed the reservation book on Adize Akebe was the last night the restaurant was complete without her, because while she was walking away from the glass door with her green lace blouse and her 31 years and her palate that could hear a soup the way a musician hears a wrong note, The kitchen behind that glass door was already waiting, without knowing it, for the one person who could fix it. If this story is already sitting with you, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss what comes next. We tell stories about the people the world overlooks until it can't anymore. Before you go, I want to ask you something real. If you spent 40 years building something, not a business, not a career, but a skill, and the world kept finding ways to not put your name on it, what would you do with the moment when someone finally offered? Would you take the table? Or would you set the terms first? Leave your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to read it. Subscribe for more stories about hidden strength, quiet power, and the people the world overlooks until they change everything. I'll see you in the next one.